done for the season, having surgery on his left calf. Obviously, they also lost their center in that game as well. Sunday night football, Carson Palmer and the Arizona Cardinals moved 3 games ahead in the NFC West with a 39-32 victory over the Seahawks. Late game issues for Seattle, once again blowing a fourth quarter lead and losing another heartbreaker. So the Seahawks are now 4-5, as I just mentioned, third in the division, 3 games behind Arizona. Skip, are the Seahawks done?
Molly, Stephen A., I have still so much respect for Seattle's defense. I still have so much respect for the weapons on Seattle's offense that I am not going to definitively state right here, right now, that they are done. But I will say, I think they're done. I will say they look like they're done. And I say that only, Stephen A., because of the way they keep losing. Once again, another loss, the 5th loss of the year. And in all 5 losses, Seattle has led in the 4th quarter. Really? That's the shocking stat of the year in pro football to me, that Seattle's defense failed to protect 5 4th quarter leads. And I remind you that Detroit loss, they beat Detroit, obviously. Detroit got robbed at Seattle, or Seattle right now should be 3-6. So what happened again last night? Actually, that defense rose and shone. The Legion of Boom boomed, and Carson Palmer strip sacked twice, 2 easy touchdowns, and all of a sudden Seattle goes ahead 29-25. And then what happened? Right on cue, as we've seen all year long. This is even in Seattle. The Legion of Boom turned right back into the Legion of Doom, D-O-O-M, Doom. And all of a sudden, here came Carson Palmer, not phased at all, 83 yards, touchdown. Then little Andre Ellington gets loose, 48 yards, touchdown. And all of a sudden, it's 39-29 visiting team ball game. I've never seen anything quite like that before. And again, Arizona looked like the better team to me all night long, except for those 2 early 4th quarter turnovers. Arizona piled up 451 yards. Arizona was 8 of 17 on 3rd down. That's almost 50% against the Legion of Doomed. And the Seattle offense, Stephen A., I don't know what's happening, but Russell Wilson is really struggling to make 3rd down plays. He's not making those kind of plays. They were 1 for 8 on 3rd down last night. QBR scale of 0 to 100 for Russell Wilson was 14 last night. So they're not getting enough playmaking from Russell Wilson, and they are not getting any playmaking late from the defense. So I will definitively state that they feel like and look like they're done.
Skip Bayless, I have to admit to you that I'm 100% with you on there, and this is my Super Bowl pick, as we all know. I didn't just pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. It looks wrong right now. I believe that in order for Seattle to make the playoffs, they're going to have to go 6-1 over their final 7 games in order to pull this out, Skip Bayless. They play Pittsburgh, they play at Minnesota, they play at Baltimore, they play at Arizona. They've got St. Louis on the schedule as well, along with the 49ers and Browns. I think they'll beat the 49ers and Browns, obviously, and I think they'll beat St. Louis in Seattle. But I got to bet on them beating the Steelers and winning at least 2 of those 3 road games at Arizona, at Baltimore, and I'm trying to remember the last one that I said. I got to worry about them winning 2 of those 3 games in order for them to make the playoffs. And right now, it's looking bleak. I never dreamed that the day would come where I'd see the Legion of Boom surrender 39 points. I never thought I'd see that happening. And here's the thing that's so perplexing about it, Skip. Their quickness on defense is so impressive, and they hit you too. And Avril played like a man possessed last night. He was sensational defensively. He was the one that strip sacked Carson Palmer on that first sack in the second half, stripped him, and KJ Wright picked it up and ran it to about the 2-yard line, okay? And then Wright obviously strip sacked Carson Palmer the second go-round, and it was returned into the end zone for a touchdown. That defense, at least at intervals, was playing lights out. But I see too many communication issues. I see too much looking at one another, and I see a coach in Pete Carroll, along with their defensive coordinator, that doesn't seem to have the same level of institutional control that existed last year with Quinn and Carroll spearheading this defense. I really, really will go back by reiterating my point, Skip. That Super Bowl loss and the manner in which it took place, I think, has had such a residual impact that the impact has been devastating. Because I think that this is a team that's just, I look at their talent. Think about it, Skip, with the exception of Corey Williams on one corner. Everywhere you look at this Seattle defense, tell me what's not impressive. Their corners, their safeties, their linebackers, their defensive linemen, the speed with which they get after the quarterback, the viciousness with which they're willing to hit you and are capable of hitting you. Skip, there's not one level of personnel on the defensive side of the ball that I would change for Seattle. I look at them and I don't see ability, athleticism, and skill being their Achilles heel. I see trust or lack thereof from one another with no leadership to look towards on the sidelines because they don't trust one another. And it started when Pete Carroll made the worst call in Super Bowl history, maybe NFL history, with the dumbest call on the planet by not giving Marshawn Lynch the football. And I contend, yet again, Skip, that his reasons for wanting to give the ball to Russell Wilson instead of Marshawn Lynch is up for grabs because you've got some people inside that locker room that feel he didn't want Marshawn Lynch to be the hero. He wanted Russell Wilson to be the hero. And it's a level of trust that is sorely lacking. On the offensive side of the ball, let's face reality. It's two problems that they have here. Basically, three. You only gave it to Marshawn Lynch 8 times. The guy averaged more than 5 yards a carry yesterday and scored a touchdown. And he was on the ball. You know you got a problem when Marshawn Lynch beast mode is on the sideline getting in guys' face to get them motivated to do their job. I never saw that before. Then you look at Jimmy Graham. There still seems to be something absolutely positively missing. And then last but not least, they can't protect Russell Wilson. Skip Bayless, this dude was running for his life half the game. He was running for his life. So I look at it from the perspective that they seem to be in a world of trouble. I'm going to wait another week before I decide. I expect them to beat San Francisco. But right now, just looking at them, in order to make the playoffs with Minnesota and Green Bay in the north, with Atlanta and Carolina in the south, with one of the teams having to come from the east, all right, and Arizona clearly going to be the team coming from the west, you have to go 6-1. I don't believe a 9-7 record is going to get you a wild card spot. It'll get somebody in the NFC East the division crown, but it's not going to get you the wild card spot in the NFC. You got to go at least 10-6, which means they've got to win 6 of their next 7. I'm not sure they can do it based on what I'm seeing. Maybe they'll come together because they realize their postseason aspirations are on the line. It's on the respirator. But that's what it's going to take. Because right now, Skip, I don't see ability being a problem. I see a lack of trust in a coach who betrayed their trust by making the dumbest call in Super Bowl history. That's what I see.
I am very with you on all of your insight into this team that you did pick to get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. It feels like dissension is growing sort of under the surface here. And it started from that last play of the Super Bowl. There's a distrust, a mistrust of the head coach. And the new coordinator seems not to have the ability to unify the defense, to keep everybody on the same page, because I'm with you. Every other play, it seems like they're pointing fingers at each other. And I must say, Richard Sherman's not playing at quite the level he played at the last, really, 3 years, where he gives up plays every once in a while. He gave up the touchdown pass to Floyd when he bid a little bit on the underneath route, thinking that maybe he could get a quick pick. And they're all trying to make plays. They overreact occasionally. And they're not as unified on the field and off the field as they used to be. So it's starting to teeter, starting to come apart. And I agree with you looking down the schedule, even all the way to the year-ender at Arizona. I'm not sure they can win that game. In fact, I'll say they won't win that game, depending on where Arizona is in how it's clinched or not. But it's looking like Arizona is clearly superior to Seattle. And then, to your point, as you watch Minnesota emerge in the north, and then you watch Atlanta still teetering but hanging in at 6-3 in the south. Well, these are wild card possibilities, so it's going to put a lot of pressure on Seattle to get it in big gear, to get on a roll here. And when I look down that schedule, I'm with you. There's some losable games. By the way, they have to go to Minnesota in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep.
So yeah, and it'll be December the 6th out in the cold.
And Pittsburgh's the week before that.
I don't know. You got it. So these are hard games for a team that's not right, that's not making the plays on either offense or defense. And I agree with you. They keep putting the game all in Russell Wilson's hands because he's won so many before. He's been very clutch in the past, but it's not benefiting Marshawn at all. They're taking the game completely out of his hands for the most part and putting it in the quarterback's hands, and it doesn't feel right to me either.
Well, Skip, the one thing that I want to point out, let's get back to Richard Sherman for a quick second. Skip, I don't think he's playing bad. I think he's playing pretty damn good. You're right that there are plays here and there that he seems to be giving up, but it's usually a communication. Like with the touchdown pass, he sort of cheated a little bit because one of the receivers for Arizona cut in front of him, and he sort of, he was open. So he thought Carson Palmer was going to the guy in front of him instead of back of him, and he wasn't covered. So even though they gave up the touchdown, he still found himself looking around because he's like, why do I have two men in my area, that I have to cover? Where were one of you guys? And so I think when you look at Richard Sherman in terms of doing his job, he's doing his job. Here's the critique of Richard Sherman that I think we all need to point out. And Richard Sherman needs to realize this. Richard Sherman didn't just get his money because he's one of the gifted corners in the game. Richard Sherman got his money because his brashness, his bravado, how he, as much as it may have been a turnoff for the opposition and some media critics, his behavior sparked and galvanized a lot of guys around him. It wasn't just Cam Chancellor and that leadership ability about guys attacking their fears, like he told me they were all trained to do, and all of them admitted when we were at the Espns a couple of years ago. This is also about a guy like Richard Sherman who would get in guys' face, do his job, and literally motivate the Wagners and the Thomases of the world, and the list went on and on of guys around him, getting guys fired up. What I see right now is a Richard Sherman who's still very good. I don't see any dissipation. I don't see any sliding of the skills or anything like that. What I see is a guy that's doing his job, but that's all, as opposed to galvanizing dudes to do their job. And Seattle's success wasn't just predicated on their abilities, their skills, their knowledge, etc. It was predicated on their ability to get the next man towards them ready and pumped to do their job. I don't see that now. You might see it when they make a play, when they actually do something. But I don't see it when they're trying to inspire others to do something. There is something missing. And I do not blame the players. I blame Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevell. They made that call. If they had lost the Super Bowl because they gave the ball to beast mode, none of this would be an issue, Skip. We gave it to beast mode himself, Marshawn Lynch. Take us to the promised land. They could have lived with that, Skip. But the coaches took a Super Bowl championship away from them. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't know how you get trust back when you look at a coach and you feel like he gave away a Super Bowl because of something other than what your identity was about. Their identity was the Legion of Boom and beast mode. And he wanted Russell Wilson to be the hero for some reason. It's costing him.
Okay, I hear you on your Richard Sherman points. Those are fair. On your last play of the Super Bowl call, I told you that the next day. I disagree with your premise on that, but where you're right is I think all those players you're talking about, especially on defense, they all agree with you. So it's a huge issue that still lingers under the surface. It's still festering under the surface for this team. So I get all that. Last quick point, Molly, just let me throw this in. We've talked about Seattle. I got to give some props to Arizona. We did not pick. Yeah, hey, listen, we both picked Seattle to win this game. I said on Friday right at the end of the show, Arizona hasn't had one game that really impressed me because all their the people they'd beaten were all under 500, and then they had lost, a couple of games I didn't think they should have lost. So my point is, last night, that was impressive. Carson Palmer is still the best deep thrower in all of pro football, and now that he's healthy, we're seeing that come to fruition again.
He's 13-2 as a starter. They're 5-5 without him in the lineup, Skip. We got to give him props. Larry Fitzgerald took that hit. He got right back up like it was nobody's business. Andre Ellington ran for that 48-yard touchdown. Honey Badger had a big-time interception, and what an exceptional playmaker he is. We all know that. But in the end, it also comes down to 14 penalties for 131 yards on behalf of Seattle's defense. And I'm here to tell you, Skip, if you throw it to the sideline and it's an incompletion, you still got 2 more plays to go in the Super Bowl. They could have eaten that. To take that kind of risk and to take the ball out of Beast Mode's hands, it definitely resonates with those players. Whether they admit it or not, they don't trust the coaches the way that they used to.
Props to the Cardinals and, of course, to Bruce Arians as well. So quite a few people had Seattle going into the Super Bowl as well as the Cowboys. Of course, on our show, too. And Dallas can certainly relate to their struggles. Dez drops the ball in Tampa, literally. How much is Big D's 7th straight loss on the Cowboys star receiver? Find out next. And we're here for you to get your